Okay, well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us for a COVID update. You know, we usually do this in the middle of the week and so forth on a pretty regular rhythm, but whenever there's a big new announcement, of course, from the state with respect to all the different COVID regulations, we want to provide folks with an update, especially from the city of Albuquerque perspective in central New Mexico. And so we have been bombarded by wonderful positive questions about when all sorts of things are going to happen. And so we at least want to try and shed a light on that today. And we're going to go through a number of things, and we are joined, of course, by some awesome members of the United team. Capital T team and lowercase t team. So we're going to have an update from them as well. And the Isotopes folks, their executive team is actually on the road today, but Lawrence Rail is going to provide a little bit of an update. But I do think folks are pretty up to speed, actually, with respect to the United and Isotopes. So we are going to spend some time on everything else. But we'll do all of that today. And we also have a really cool unrelated announcement. So that more has to do with homelessness. So I'll fit that in at some point. So that's our agenda for today. So let me begin, I think, by just saying a couple of things. One, let me get this arranged here just a minute. Okay. So one is that, you know, yellow is such a relief. And so I do just want to share that hopefully, I know we still have all sorts of challenges and struggles, both in our, many of us for our lives with respect to COVID, but also as a community. But still, yellow is a relief, but it's not the finish line, right? And now we know there's other colors down the road that we want to get to. But a year ago, the pandemic obviously derailed all of our lives. And as we're sitting here in New Mexico's premier stadium, where right now both the United and the Isotopes play, you know, this hasn't been used in, I think, almost exactly a year. And for us, we now have a path forward where we can get facilities like this both open and for different varying levels of fans back in the stands. Now, we want to preface everything I'm going to share with you by saying that all of this, of course, depends on the statistics and the gating criteria that you use to get through the colors. So, you know, we have a forecast that we'll share today, and much like weather forecasting, you know, it could all change. You know, obviously things could come back and we could slip back, or we could even do better and move faster. So, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but I just want to state that, you know, obviously there's no certainty when we're going to turn green and that kind of thing. But we do have sort of a general estimate. And so, in general, we believe that, you know, we should be able to hit green based on the current numbers this spring. You can define that for however you want, but it's not that far away. And we do believe we'll be able to hit turquoise this summer. And so that does align nicely with things like the United and Isotopes and concerts and so forth. So to talk a little bit about that, we'll go into some of the details, but in general, let me share this basically. For all sorts of fun outdoor activity, so stadiums like this, and for our outdoor museum theater, for our the gazebo at Old Town, these all have music venues. These are all concert venues. For the Isleta Amphitheater, for the Balloon Park, for Civic Plaza, for the rail yards, all of these kinds of things, we are working through the mechanics of being able to open them for 25% capacity based on the yellow status. And then, of course, they'd go 50% for green and then 75% for turquoise. So in general, you can kind of, as a rule of thumb, use that for outdoor venues. And I'm going to talk about some of the nuances around this, but for indoor venues, it's a little slower, right? So people are asking, you know, what about the convention center, the Chemo, the Kiva, and all our community centers and our aquarium? Under yellow, those are still not open. So as a reminder, we don't expect in March, let's say, as a rough estimate, any of those to be able to open. Now in green, though, they can open at 25%. So hopefully in the spring, we will be able to get all of those indoor venues open on a limited basis. And then, of course, they're 50% at turquoise. Now, I want to highlight especially, and he's going to talk in a little bit, our fire marshal. The fire marshal's office is really kind of the interpreter and arbiter, and they have been incredibly busy during COVID. And so first I want to thank them. Our fire marshal's here, Gene, and, you know, no pressure since he's in charge of everything, but, you know, our fire marshal's office has just done literally an incredible job during the pandemic. And they are the ones who really have to sign off on all of these levels. And I want to mention that all of these levels include COVID-safe practices. So it is not automatic. Just as a reminder, so for example, like the Isleta venue, that's a joint deal with the city and the county fire marshal's office, but the marshals have to sign off on that, and they have to go through all the COVID protocol. It's the same with the stadium. The stadium will not open until our fire marshal says it's okay. So the good news is they're ahead of the curve and they know what they're doing, and they work with people so that they can open as soon as they can. And so Gene's going to walk through that process. But I do want to let folks know it's not automatic, because remember, these openings are all based on the fact that you have COVID safe practices in place. So an example of that is our schools. I instructed the marshal to work with APS and get the facilities ready. Again, not the programming or the teaching, but the facilities still have to be signed off on by the fire marshal. And I believe actually this week now they all are signed off on. So we are 100% good to go from a facilities perspective for schools. And again, that's through the fire marshal's office. So let's do a couple of things. I think the order of show here, what I'm going to do is just create a little bit of space for the guests we have the most of, which is Team United. So we're going to pause and hear from them, and then we'll get back to a little isotopes, and then the city, and then I'll talk about a wonderful announcement that has to do with our homeless community at the end. So with that, let's start with the United. And so I'm going to bring up your team, introduce them. Peter Trevisani, owner of the United.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Mr. Al, great to see you. Really appreciate being here today. In a word, we're thrilled to be back playing at this beautiful park, working with the Isotopes, working with the city, being able to be home. Last year was incredibly challenging. We weren't allowed to play in the state, and so we went on the road, and we played on the road because it was important that we were able to get out there and play for the people of New Mexico who were in their homes, and we were all suffering deeply. And so we were really honored to do that last year and make that sacrifice. But New Mexico United is really about so much more than just playing soccer. It's a family. It's a community. And it's a family of 2.1 million people, and this is our living room. This is where we gather. And so much of the experience of a United game is when our fans and our supporters can see each other. So many people have met at these games. They go to each other's weddings now. They go to each other's birthday parties, or they did, and they've paused, and they will again. But the fact is that there's so much more happening here than just a game. But last year, again, so challenging. Coach Lesane and Devin Sandoval are gonna talk as well. But what they did was really unprecedented, and we were able to travel without a single positive COVID test for the team. Very, very impressive. And I think we've shown that we can play safely. We can return to play safely. We can gather under the COVID safe protocols, but do so in a safe manner. And so we're so excited that this is going to be happening, whether we're in the yellow, green, turquoise. I'll take any of those colors because they mean the same thing. It means that we're back and that we're here. And now the challenge is working very closely with the Isotopes, the city, the fire marshal, to make sure that we have a layout in this stadium that is safe, and how we work on the ingress and egress so that we can have amazing experiences here again. So we're going to be kicking off our season in early May, and we expect to bring a cup to New Mexico. No pressure, Coach. But that's our goal. We're winners in New Mexico. That's what we do here, and we do it the right way, and we do it in a way that represents who we are every single kick, every single day, on and off the field. So with that, I'd like to just introduce our head coach, Troy Lesane, and Devin Sandoval.
Thank you guys for having us as well, and I'll throw it to Devin here in a couple seconds to give you a player's perspective. But again, thank you to the mayor, and thank you to everyone who's worked so incredibly hard to get us back into this position, to be back in this stadium right now and envision 25%, 50%, 75%, and then inevitably 100% fan capacity at some stage. It's the best atmosphere in the entire USL, which is the league we play in. And arguably the best atmosphere in North America. And that's something that we pride ourselves on for what we did in 2019 to have one of the highest attendance averages in the league, the highest attendance average in the league. We didn't get to do that in 2020, and we didn't make any excuses. We went on the road, and we tried to, just represent exactly what this state stands for, which is get to work, don't make any excuses, and now that we're in a position that we're going to be able to be back home, we're thrilled about that. Year 3 for us is about trying to bring a trophy and a championship to New Mexico, because that's what New Mexico deserves. And the pressure's on from our owner, and the pressure's on from the head coach. So I'll throw it to a player now who has to deal with that in the biggest way, in Devin Sandoval.
When I think of United, the first thing that comes to my mind is community, and being here at Isotopes Park, the community we've built, it's unlike anything I've ever been a part of before. And to think of this place at 25% capacity or 50 or 75%, it gives me chills, and I can only imagine the energy that's going to be in here when those people come out for that first game. Speaking as a player, it's an honor and a privilege to represent, this community and this state, especially being from here. But we take these protocols very seriously, and the health of our fellow New Mexicans. So, that's always important to us. But can't wait to get back out here and see some familiar faces.
All right, thanks so much, United, and we're just very, very excited. So let's talk a little about the Isotopes, and filling in is their deputy GM for the hour, Lawrence Real, our COO.
Executive of the year. Thank you, Mayor. Let me just say thank you all for being here today. As you all know, the Isotopes put out a press release, I think it was, if not last week, the week before, that basically saying that their first opening game is April the 8th. So they have been green-lighted from the league to have a full season, and so given where we are with COVID in New Mexico and the latest information we have received, we're at 25% occupancy for this facility, and it's really a great opportunity for us to come back together again, as United folks have said, and the mayor, to be as a family and begin to enjoy this great facility. A little bit about the facility, however, over the course of the last year, Mayor made it a priority that we would move as much of our construction funds out in the community and do as much work as we possibly could to improve facilities, our roads, our infrastructure. And this facility, quite frankly, was a beneficiary of an initiative that the mayor proposed to the council well over a year ago to use some lodgers tax money to improve the facility. And as a result, during the time that we weren't playing here and we weren't using it, we did some really cool things to the facility that are important and that the fans will certainly appreciate. Throughout the facility, you'll see that we have replaced a significant portion of the chairs that were obviously were old and were needing to get replaced. So you'll see some of the darker, lighter colored chairs. Goes to show you that we're constantly doing a revamp of the seating, if you will, in the facility. The sun and the weather elements, especially a facility like this, really get to those chairs. So we replaced a great portion of them, and we'll continue a program going forward to have those replaced. But also some things that folks don't always see. We've improved the mechanical systems in the facility. The facility now is going on almost 20 years since it was built, and it still looks amazing. But that's because we have a great crew out here, and we fixed, for example, the air conditioning and the heating and cooling systems on the facility. We've also did some, if you will, a little bit of a facelift in some of the areas of the facility. We put new stucco. We fixed the roof, a couple of areas where we had some leaks, etc. And then the most important that we have been talking about for some time is we put the nets around the entire facility, if you will, the netting, so that when you're playing baseball, we're protecting the fans from foul balls, etc. So a lot of investment, well over $1 million of investment to make this facility, again, to continue it to be the nice facility it is, and keeping the standards that we are required to for baseball. And obviously, as we convert the field to provide for United's opportunity to play here, we have made those arrangements as well. So the facility is in good shape, and if you're really, really super quiet, you can actually hear the walls calling out the fans, come see Isotopes Park, because it's really a cool place to be. So with that, I think it's really a great day for Albuquerque and New Mexico, and keep it up, New Mexico and Albuquerque. We're going to get to green, and then we're going to get turquoise, and then we'll all be together again. Thanks.
All right, we need that. I don't know what comes after Turquoise. Like, what is it, open? Zia level sponsorship or something? Anyway, yeah, it's just a good thing. That's what it is. So appreciate that. And also want to mention, too, we've been working to try and utilize this facility even more as a city. And there are a lot of scheduling issues that always take first priority. But we did enable, just for what it's worth, we kind of raised the ingress and egress so that we could actually have concerts here. And so we've been able to do that a couple of times a year, but now we're going to be able to do it more. So I think in the off season, again, we just want everyone in New Mexico to enjoy this facility for as much as they can. And so I would expect going into the winter, more availability for things like concerts here. And so let's transition a little bit to some of our, speaking of concerts, I'm buying tickets to Trivium and Megadeth and Lamb of God at Isleta. It's in August. I'm counting on it. And so anyway, but we also have all these concert venues. As a reminder, a lot of the concerts that people go to by volume are in city facilities. So it's the venue at the zoo. It's the shell at the zoo, and it's all the different things like the museum, the gazebos, even at the farmers markets and so forth. So we're going to walk through with you kind of how those are going to work. And so to do that is our director of the Arts and Culture Department, or is it, did I get it right? Arts and Culture? Nice. All right, Arts and Culture Department. The director who oversees all of those. So Tingley Beach, all of these questions, all for our director, Shel Sanchez.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here today. I feel like this beautiful weather is portending good things for us all coming back together. And I have to say, it's so great to have this opportunity to talk about arts and concerts and venues with United here, because they are an organization that really believes in the intersection of arts and sports and culture. All these things go together. So I'm glad we're all talking about them together today. We are really excited for the increasing capacity at all of our venues as we move from, now we're in yellow. We've been open for a while at our zoo and our botanic gardens, museums, libraries, but we are looking forward to having more and more people back as we move from 25% capacity, 33, 50, 75, and then hopefully someday we can just open the doors wide open altogether. By the time we get to Turquoise, we're at 75% capacity for places like the zoo and botanic gardens, and that means we can have a lot of people together. We're also really proud of the work that we've done during this past year. We've kept our venues open at whatever level we were able to, and we've really kept our staff and our visitors safe, and we're going to continue to do that as we roll through all of these colors as soon as possible, I certainly hope. We're also really, really encouraged. I think one of the places that's been really hard for the community has been the performance venues and the fact that those have been closed. So we're really excited that Turquoise, Green and Turquoise really allow us to start opening up performance venues at the city, but also our smaller venues, concert venues, and our small performance spaces. So as soon as we hit green, we can be at 25% for places like the Chemo and South Broadway, but also some of our smaller nonprofits who have their own performance venues. So that is pretty exciting for a lot of people. We're also, with gathering limits increasing outside and our recreational outdoor facilities opening up, we really can start talking about live music again, which is going to hopefully coincide really well with warmer weather, which is hopefully right around the corner. Hopefully today is not a teaser. I think the other thing is that this last year, and I mean this for us as the city, but also for our arts and cultural partners, and I think United also just alluded to this, we've all gotten really creative. So there's a lot that we can do, and we look forward to doing it as more and more things open up, and as we can bring 150 people together, or we can bring 25, 50% of our capacity in places like Balloon Fiesta Park, the outdoor spaces at the zoo, the outdoor spaces at our museum. So there's going to be a lot more opportunities for us to gather. One of the things that the Department of Arts and Culture does is we oversee special event permits, and we're also a resource for our community. So please, if you want to plan something in a park, or you want to plan a big event, or you are looking forward to having 150 people together somewhere, reach out to our department and we will help you through all the kind of restrictions and COVID-safe practices that have to be in place at that point. It's a really knowledgeable staff, and they will help you navigate all of the state health rules. And I think the other thing that I want to say is there's a lot open and a lot of places to connect. So please come out. Come out to your museums. Come out to the zoo. Come out to the Botanic Gardens. Visit Tingley Beach. Rail Yards Market is going to be back in about 6 weeks. So there's a lot out there, and there's just going to be more and more of us gathering together. So thank you so much.
All right, so thanks so much for that, Dr. Sanchez. And what we're going to do, so if there's questions about different things, always call 311. That's always a good place to start. And as a reminder, we do want to ask for everyone's patience, because to open in a COVID-safe way under these rules, again, does take things like permitting, sign-offs by fire marshals, and this sort of thing. And so our fire marshal is going to speak to this, but I just want to remind everyone that it does take a little bit of time, and especially if we're setting up a time ticketing system. We use the internet and so forth like we've been doing for the zoo. So, let's all, again, a sigh of relief that we're in yellow and we sort of get a taste of normalcy. But it is going to be a gradual process, of course. And so a lot of that patience I would ask for when you're dealing with our fire marshal's office, because they have a lot of work to do every time we go through one of these transitions. And they have done an incredible job of keeping us safe and healthy, number one. But number two, just being flexible and working with folks, again, on compliance, not on, punishment and enforcement. And that's been our city's approach throughout the pandemic. And by and large, with very, very minor exception, it has been a truly collaborative effort and a One Albuquerque effort. And so the person in charge of all of those details is our Fire Marshal, Gene Gallegos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for your time. So as the mayor said, the Fire Marshal's office has been working very diligently with all the community, all the business community, and anybody that has any questions to help clarify that. Again, it's not just the Fire Marshal's office and that's doing this. Environmental health, code enforcement, city security, all of us are working as a team, as, again, One Albuquerque, to make sure that the citizens of Albuquerque and all the businesses are following the COVID-safe practices. And we're doing our best to get out there. So please, as the mayor said, please stay patient with us, and we'll get out to you as soon as possible. Use 311 and send a request, and we'll get out to you. We'll call you up, we'll schedule an appointment, and we'll get to you as soon as possible, whether that be environmental health, code enforcement, or the fire marshal's office. So some numbers about Bernalillo County today is Bernalillo County is at 14.1 cases per 100,000 and 3.13% positivity rate. So what we want to get get into green is 8 cases per 100,000 and less than 5% positivity rates. So we need both of those to get into the green, right? To get into turquoise, we need to be in green for a month. So again, obviously that's what our goal is right here, to get to turquoise, and then eventually to get to the doors wide open, as we were saying before. Again, we want to get back to a sense of normalcy, and making this happen is following the public safe health order and progressing through the colors so that we get back to that normalcy and we get back to being together again. The FMO office is ramping up our efforts to, again, communicate with the business owners, getting them in set up so that they are in compliance with COVID safe practices and the public health order. So we're willing to work with any business that calls us up. We do want to make sure that we can set your occupancy limits. We want to make sure that you are doing it right. So that's, as the mayor said, we want to make sure compliance is happening. We don't want to go in there and do any type of enforcement or punishments. That's not our goal. Compliance is what we want, and that's what we're going for. So we also are excited to continue to work with the states on unique solutions for Albuquerque, on how we can open up different venues in the city of Albuquerque, such as the Buffalo Bills, their unique concept whenever they had their first playoff game of incorporating testing with the the playoff game, and 24 hours in advance you had to get the COVID test. You know, there's certain different unique ways that you can incorporate testing and other methods to, again, help us open up all these venues in a safe way. So, but that is it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Marshal Gallegos. And, you know, I love the Buffalo Bills example. We'll obviously work with the state on this, but, you know, we're going to see if there are some ways to connect testing and increased, you know, access or things like that. So, you know, we'll just see, but we're going to try and get creative, and we'll see what, you know, everyone can kind of agree on. But that is a really good example of the last piece that I want to share, which is that some of this is still on us, right? We've got to keep doing all those COVID safe practices, the masks, the distancing, following the actual orders, and remembering that it's a lot longer to open than it is to close. It's very easy, frankly, just to shut everything down. And we can all say this because we've all been through this a bunch of times. It's much harder to open because there are even little things like hiring staff, you know, all of these things that you have to get in place. So we ask for folks' patience, but also remember you can help. You can help by getting tested. If you have any symptom, if you think you've been remotely near anyone, go get tested. And remember, that also hits the gating criteria, so that's important too. But most importantly for your health, just go get tested. And now there's testing locations all over the city. They're almost all less than 2-day turnaround, and there's different kinds if you want nose or mouth and things like this. There's even testing at the airport and so forth. So we want to make sure everyone continues to get tested. And if you haven't signed up, of course, do sign up for the vaccine. And, you know, we are hopeful that maybe America gets the Johnson & Johnson vaccine out. That's going to accelerate everything in every way. And so that's way out of our control here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but that's what I'm hoping for over the weekend. So with that, let me do this. We'll certainly be here to take questions. And I do want to share, there was an announcement yesterday that we just want to mention and really say thank you for. And there were 5 of our major kind of anchor institutions in Albuquerque, and they've been deciding to really pool their resources to help our city address some of our big challenges. And they'll be talking about this in different forms and what they're up to. But what they did announce yesterday is that, you know, with the rise in homelessness across the nation, the Bank of Albuquerque, French Funerals, and New Mexico Mutual and PNM and Presbyterian, they're going to be contributing $500,000 to the city's homeless efforts. And that's very, very much appreciated. This is going to boost our multifaceted approach for everything from emergency shelters to transitional housing to behavioral health to substance abuse. So a lot more on this down the road. But we very much just want to say thank you. And I do have a quote here to read from Norm Becker from New Mexico Mutual. He's their president. And it's that, you know, business has a key role to play in creating a vibrant economy and a healthy downtown. While financial support is not the only solution, it can help foster programs to address Albuquerque's needs. By coming together and committing to specific causes, businesses can make a bigger impact. And they are literally walking the walk on that statement with this generous donation to help support the city's efforts. So thank you so much, Norm and the crew and all of those businesses for being part of that One Albuquerque spirit and demonstrating that public-private partnership, that private side of that equation in a meaningful, tangible way. So we really, really appreciate that. All right, so with that, we'll take questions on any of the topics for anyone, and I'll just hand it off if you have ones that don't work for me.
Mayor, I mean, the big thing that we want to ask is the progress on the new United Stadium. I know you guys are here at the Isotopes, but we want to know.
Yeah, I mean, who cares about opening and COVID and homelessness? So, you know, it's a great question. So here's where we're at with this. One is we're, of course, at the legislature asking for a down payment, if you will, on this. And the state legislature and the governor really helped out last year, and we're hoping they're going to help out again this year. And so that's the stage we're in. And so here's kind of the sequence. One is because of the timing of the session, we got to ask for money from the state now. And that is in concurrence with, or conjunction with, the study that we're doing. And we're doing a feasibility study now that the legislature paid for last year, which is great. So thank you again, legislature. But this is like the big kid study. This is the real study to actually get things done. It's one thing to have, you know, a little summary paper about how great soccer is and how we have like open land. This study is expensive. I think it's $400,000, something like that. And the reason why is because we've got to get down the math. And so this study is going to tell us literally how much could it cost, what are the bonding options, what are the financing tools, what are the locations that actually might work when you add in everything like parking. I mean, people always see like an MTV thought that'd be a great place for the stadium. And then it's like, where are people going to park? And it's like, oh yeah, that'd be tough. So it's a real study that is going to point the path forward. That study should be done this spring. And once we have that study, we will definitely be excited to share what the next steps are. But you know, eventually, everything's got to go through city council, and a lot of the stuff probably will end up on the ballot and go to voters. But that study, it's not worth going too far until we get that study done.
I got one more then. You're talking about 25%,
Okay.
and you know, going to yellow, and we're in yellow. We're going to green and turquoise. 25%, like that's not many people compared to what they're used to. You were talking about hiring. You're talking about field management, setup, everything. Is it feasible with 25% having people here? Does it make sense business-wise? Because it is a business.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll let the United answer that question for them, certainly. And, you know, I don't want to speak for the Isotopes, but, you know, in general, and you're absolutely right that there's an upfront cost that might not pencil out. But if you feel like you're confident that you're going to be able to go to 50 and 75, you know, a couple of games down the road, then you might as well sort of turn the engine on again. And we see that with restaurants too. I know it's very hard for restaurants. We've heard this to, you know, just open at 25%. And look, some of them might wait till 50. And we completely understand that. So we're going to let the tenant essentially decide. So whether it's the Isotopes or the United, and they can make that decision. You want to add anything on that?
Yeah, what I just add to that is, you know, if the question is, can we make money here at 25%, the answer is absolutely no, we can't. But, you know, New Mexico United has never been just about balance sheets and optimizing profits. We need, as the mayor alluded to, we need to come back together, and we need to bring people back together, and we need to put, you know, the dollars and cents aside a little bit, knowing that one day we will be back to full capacity. One day we will be in a better financial place. So this is an important step. This is about a lot more than just you know, dollars and cents. It's about our community and you know, our entire state. So we're going to be at 25%. We would be here. If it was only 500 people, we would pivot somewhere else. There is a point where it just doesn't make any sense. We wouldn't play here if it was no fans. But at 25%, we're going to make it work and get creative and figure it all out.
Do you know where you would pivot to? Any ideas?
Well, you know, recently with again, thank you, Mayor, for this, and Lawrence, and also with the Bernalillo County and the State Land Office, we have a practice field this year. We didn't have that before. We were a true nomad when we first got out here, but through that, we actually have a professional, you know, high-quality field that we're practicing on in Mesa del Sol, and that could be a place where we could, you know, play games without any fans, or if we had very few, you know, a handful of fans. So, you know, we were committed as long as we didn't have to travel out of state for every game. We just didn't feel like that was worth it. We just couldn't ask that again of Coach and Devin, and you know, they have families, and the stress is really unbelievable for them, so we couldn't do that, but we definitely would play out there. But I'm excited that we're heading in a much different direction, and I'm hoping we're at 75% by the time we can, you know, start kicking the ball in May. Thank you.
Yep.
Jackie Kent from KRQE is asking, regarding the reopening of Isotopes Park, will Isotopes and United fans have to buy tickets online ahead of time? How will concessions, the gift shop, and entering the stadium work? Any early ideas? Also, how many of the stadium seats will be replaced?
All right, good questions. So the questions are about kind of how this is actually going to work with respect to like concessions and ticketing and so forth. And so here's basically the process. The teams, or the tenants, the United and the Isotopes, they're going to work on a plan and to answer all of those questions. And then that most likely will have to get signed off by the state. And then the fire marshal will sign off that they're actually ready to execute that plan. And so that's why there is much still work to be done. And so we're looking, I'm sure we're going to look at all the different options, whether it's online ticketing only, or, is it a lottery, and all of these kinds of things. So stay tuned, I think, is the best answer I could give you.
I think you said it well. We've got a really good plan in place. We're fine-tuning it with the Isotopes. We'll make sure it's safe, whatever is, that's number one.
Yeah, and one thing about like concessions and eating, outdoor dining is allowed and so forth. So I think that part's one of the easier parts. I mean, there will be availability of food, but how much and in what form and how you order it, those are all the things they're going to work through.
And the number of seats that have been replaced?
Oh, Lawrence, that's it's okay if we're just stumped on that.
Let me go count them. I'll get back.
So Jackie, what you can do is have your camera pan, and you can see them. You can just count them. So it's hard to tell. There's easily, I don't know, at least 1,000 maybe. Yeah, 15 to 20%. So that's about 2,000.
And this one's for the fire marshal from Brittany Costello. Have you guys had to ramp up staffing in order to accommodate the increased responsibility? Are you still responding to non-compliance? And are there any updated numbers?
So I'll hand it off to the fire marshal for that. One thing I do want to mention, because I forgot to, we put together a task force at the city that is comprised of a number of departments. That has been the only way Albuquerque has been able to basically stay open and authorize people to stay open, is because, if it's an event at a park, Parks and Rec is actually involved, and they have their own monitors and supervisors for things like sporting events and so forth. If it's at the zoo, it's cultural services, and so forth. So there's a team that does this, and environmental health does all the restaurant inspections. So that's a team there. And then in general, on like grocery stores and so forth, there's code enforcement. So our planning department through code enforcement is also involved. So when Gene gives you these answers, just remember there's several dozen people across half a dozen departments who actually make this possible.
Yes, thank you for that question. And as far as wrapping up my personnel, no, we've had the same amount of staff, again, utilizing what the mayor has helped us all come together and work together as a team with environmental health, code enforcement, fire marshal's office, city security. And so we've all been just, lifting the load. And lately, especially now that we've gone into yellow, the amount of complaints and concerns has drastically decreased. So it's more of us just going out and doing drop-ins and just seeing if everybody is in compliance. And at this point, yes, most, if not all of them, are in compliance. A lot of people think because of the size of the store, and there's a lot of people inside these stores, that they think they're overcrowded. But then once we go in, we confirm businesses are maintaining the numbers. We ask them, what is your current occupancy load? They tell us how many people are in the store at that time, and then what they're allowed to have, which is whether it is 25%, 50%, and all of them are in compliance. So right now, the current numbers over the last 7 days, we've had 133 compliance interactions. Again, that does not mean that's they were doing anything wrong. That's just us going in there and talking with them and educating them on what is allowed, and or if there was concern, we just make sure that they were following the public health order. So overall, since April, since this has started, we've had over 112,000 interactions. Again, so that's a heavy lift for all of us to be going out there and communicating with all these business owners and the community. So it's a lot of work, and again, that's what we're here to do, is communicate with the public, making sure that everybody's in compliance, doing their parts. Again, we want to get to green, we want to get to turquoise. So as long as everybody does their parts, then we're going to get there. So as a community, thank you.
Can you just talk about how it was last year and just being away for so long? It seemed like the team started out really good, and then all that travel just kind of wore on the players. Can you talk about how good it is to be able just to be home and that home field advantage that you're going to have? Yep.
Yeah, so what I would say about the difference it's going to make in our season, when we look at last year, I think that we made a commitment and we decided to say yes. I think it would have been a lot easier to say no last year and go through a season that was all on the road, is something that most people wouldn't entertain, but we knew what it would do for our community. And as a result, we took a big step forward from year 1 to year 2. We progressed. We made the playoffs for the 2nd year in a row, won our first playoff match, all on the road. So what it means to come back now and be able to have home matches, again, we progressed from a year 1 team, establishing ourselves amongst some of the best in U.S. soccer by qualifying for the Open Cup and making it all the way to the quarterfinals, beating MLS teams. So we put ourselves on the map that way. Year 2, we decided to say yes when you could have easily said no, and I think there's a lot to be said for that from the player's standpoint and from Peter's standpoint. And we made progress towards being not only a 2nd-year playoff team, but progressing around winning our first playoff match. So now to come back home and just think about being in front of our fans again, we have a great expectation for us to not only make the playoffs again, but to try to bring a championship home. And I think with the support of these fans, whether it's 25% or hopefully all the way up to 100% at some stage, it's a tremendous advantage, not only from a mental standpoint of knowing that we have the support of these fans right here behind us, full voice, but then also just the pressure that our opponents feel whenever they come to Isotopes Park. It's not an atmosphere players the opponent wants to play in front of, but it's definitely an atmosphere that Devin Sandoval, who scores a lot of goals here at the lab, and the rest of our players want. So it's going to be big time for us in 2021.
All right. Any others? So let me just mention one other thing in close. We haven't been able to talk about since the travel restrictions were lightened. And so I do just want to say thank you to the state and the governor and for everyone who did adhere to that when there was that ban. Those changes are enabling, right, all of these teams to stay here. And they're also enabling tourism to start up again. They're also enabling some hope for our convention centers. So like when we get to green, we're really going to see these restriction changes really bear fruit. And even at the Sunport. So we talked about that last time, and once we get to green, we'll really deep dive on those topics. But right now at yellow, it's just, like the convention center still is basically closed. So the only other thing I would just mention is that we're hoping next week to provide a little bit of an update on summer programs. We know that we're all still kind of wondering about the rest of the school year, especially as an APS parent. But the city has to plan in advance. So we do want to present some expectations and some timelines for all those great summer things that we do. So we'll work through that and hopefully provide an update on that next week. All right, thanks everybody.